Hello and welcome to the Sky Blue Times YouTube channel. Today I want to give my quick thoughts on the match against Leeds this weekend. Tomorrow, game against them at home at the Etihad. A real big opportunity to get into a good run of form when you're looking at the Premier League fixtures coming up that we have in Leeds. I think Fulham coming up after that midweek. You've got West Ham and Sunderland mixed in there at some point. It's a really favourable run in comparison to a team like Arsenal, in comparison to a team like Chelsea as well. So when you want to get that kind of consistent run going whilst those teams are going through tougher fixtures, it really is important, especially at this time of the season. And I think off the back of those two losses to Newcastle and Leverkusen, which I think are really quite different games to look back on. I think when it comes to the Newcastle game, they created more than enough chances to win that game comfortably, and not taking their chances was ultimately their downfall. But I think when you're looking at the ideas in possession, out of possession, I think the aggression, there's a lot to like in that performance. I don't think there's much you can kind of come away from and be too upset about. But you would have wanted to take those chances, and even if we come away from that with a draw, I think you're in a much better place looking back on the game, and you take that on the chin, especially away to a ground like St James Park, where only in the Premier League Arsenal, Liverpool won there, and both of those situations were really quite extreme ones last minute. They weren't a team that was getting dominated for 90 minutes in that respect, versus the Leverkusen game, where I think the changes by Pep is definitely one factor, but for me that goes hand in hand with the performances of the player. I've just seen his press conference earlier previewing the game against Leeds, saying how they didn't really even try, and he takes on the chin about the changes being a bit too much. But coming from that Newcastle game, players being really tired, looking at the way that the team was in training, the energy that they had, the players that were really wanting to play more minutes and wanted to prove themselves, he felt in a good spot to be able to make that, and that team did need to kind of not only rest some players but also have some more players coming to the fold heading into that kind of more congested fixture schedule, and they've let him down as well. And I think that's the kind of, for me, that was the most disappointing result personally of the season, because of the performance, because of how many players on that pitch I thought better of, rated higher than the performance they put in. And you see people talk about the kind of tactics out of possession, how they press, etc. after the match, but you can't press in any shape. You can't attack the opposition in any shape when you've got players that are like training cones when it comes to pressing, just running around and not really switched on, not aggressive, not closing down crosses for the goal to Schick. I think that's the second goal. Savinho, I'll just stroll up there and come towards you, but I'm not really going to be aggressive at all in closing you down. You've got that aspect off the ball, and then you've got on the ball, you've got Iganori not knowing, do I make a run, do I not with Savinho and Bob on either side. I'll stand up a full back and I'll pass it back, and when there's space there I won't attack it. Just not the kind of urgency, aggression, the kind of risk taking that you'd expect to see from, quite frankly, one or two of those players. We're not going for making 10 changes and all 10 players need to give man of the match performances because they want to play in the 11 this weekend against Leeds. You're looking for one or two guys to really stand up and show something, and you just couldn't find that until the changes come on. The players come on at half time, make the changes, and you slowly start to see the game turn. So you create more and more chances, but still was a little bit too late in that regard, I think. And even then, you've still got players on the pitch that kind of just didn't look like they thought it was going to happen. And so, yeah, really, really disappointing result for me. That is hands down the most disappointing one, because of the performance, because of the players, as I've just mentioned there. And I think going into the coming games, you want to see the depth options compete for places, push the players that are starting. And let's not forget, Bournemouth, Dortmund, Liverpool, really good performances all the way through, and that's the team that you expect to start most of the games that you're going to rely a lot on. But you want those players that are the depth to chip in and try and push players to provide competition for places, to be able to rotate with those. And it was like all of, if not most of the players that came on and played in that match against Leverkusen were like no, I'm I'm not. I'm not an option. I'm not to be trusted for rotation, and I'm not too fussed about forcing my way into the team, which is just not the attitude that you want to have. And I think that's why it's expected that you see people kind of looking at Semenyo, for example. People are looking at other attacking players because the ones that they've got in Savinho, Bob, as well as other players having their issues, just don't look like they're trying to seize their moments and force their way into the team. But yeah, so we'll move on to the Leeds match. I think really this is a game they have to win without a doubt. Leeds are not in a good spot, not a good team this season in the Premier League. Have trended more to playing short than when they were playing long earlier in the season, which has not helped them. They've only won one game away from home in the Premier League this season, which was against Wolves, who are rock bottom of the Premier League. That was a 3-1 win for Leeds. They've lost all 5 other games away from home. In those 5 games they've lost, they've only scored 1 goal. This is not a team that that we should have difficulty with. This is a team we should beat quite handsomely and kickstart a winning run. And I expect it to be similar to the Everton game, the Burnley game perhaps. Leeds will play a little bit more long than they have done recently. I don't think it's a team that will, unless they're not switched on at all, that will try and play as much based off the performances and results that they've got on in previous games by playing a little bit more short. But you just never know. And it will be about breaking that team down, a team that will not press us as high as others, that will be difficult to break down. And I think in part that's also one of the kind of disappointing parts of the Leverkusen match, is that going into this one, you'd expect that you'd need to play more conventional wingers to hold the width on either side, and a couple of your options in Savinho and Oscar Bob that would have played in the Leverkusen game have just said, I'm not really an option for you right now. So that will definitely raise some question marks on what Guardiola does go with. Does he give one of these guys another chance, because they really were both poor against Leverkusen, among other players? Kind of leads you to expect that we'll see another 10 changes as we go back to the team that has been performing in several games consecutively. They have no Longstaff, they have no Stack. I think both of those players will miss this game. Crucial players for them in midfield as well. So it's not just a poor team, it's a team that's missing very important players for them. They've not had players really kind of click at the other end of the pitch. Calvert-Lewin, for example, Nemec's top scorer, 3 starts in the Premier League with 3 goals. So that probably be the one kind of like dangerous player to keep an eye on. Rondon has 2, Okafor has 2 goals, Longstaff has the most assists with 2. He also leads them for big chances created with 6. So really big players for Leeds to miss for this game. Shot creating actions as well, 31 each. Longstaff and Stack both will miss this game for Leeds. So really everything is in the favour of Manchester City when it comes to looking at Leeds this season. I think Kovacic's still out. Rodri is going to be back soon, but not ready for this game. So even when you're looking at the bench, the options, etc., injuries, they're all there for Manchester City to be able to use and win this game. And really, it should be a comfortable win. That's really what they should be expecting. And so yeah, that's that. Just run you through. This was just last couple of games for Leeds away against Brighton. Beaten in that game. Longstaff, as I mentioned, won't be in this game. Key player in midfield for them. Still with that back 4, perhaps we might see a back 5 in this game, and they kind of lean more and more into sitting lower. But because they've tried to play a little bit more short recently, played back 4 in most of their games, they've got players that can win a lot of aerial duels in Rondon and Bijou. That's one thing, but yeah, and unless we see a big departure from Leeds to go completely long and to go 5 at the back, which we may see because it is at the Etihad, then yeah, I expect Leeds to play in a way that will give City some space. You look at the Forest game as well. Forest, I think at the time, didn't have a win. They ended up beating Leeds 3-1 in this game. Again, back 4, Longstaff, Stack either side, key players in midfield for Leeds. Game really kind of turned quite quickly towards the end. And then even with the Villa game more recently, again, that was a game that Leeds were in. Longstaff, Stack, etc. More important players for this team. And Nemecha, you see this goal here. But yeah, they're going to be missing those players in midfield And again, it was still continuation. I think when I was looking at their percentage of goal kicks, at least for the last 4 games, there was one game above 40%, and the rest were below. So they're really not looking to play long in these recent games, which I think when they come to the Etihad and you're going to allow City to press you a little bit more, could give them some problems. And then I was just going to roll back to this: the Burnley game. The City played up, Doku, Savinho either side, Foden dropping in between, Nico drop back line, playing the pivot, Vardy, Diaz, Mateus Nunes looking to support Savinho at times, Reinders as well playing in this. And if the Leverkusen result was a win and it was a much better performance, then I think I'd be saying to you guys in this video that we're probably going to see Savinho on one of the sides or Bob. You'd expect one of those players to hold the whip, so you could stretch the opposition and open up space between the lines as well. Particularly for a team I expect to just sit back a little bit deeper. So that would be what I would be saying. But because of the performance against Leverkusen, it's hard to really suggest that Savinho or Bob should start this game, even if the need on paper is to play with somebody like that. So what you might see is Doku on the left-hand side, O'Reilly, and then perhaps it's Mateus Nunes holding the width on that right-hand side as the right back, as you have somebody like Shirky play there and then move inside. So a bit more kind of like asymmetrical is what I would be thinking. You also go to the Everton game at home, same again, Doku, Savinho either side, Reinders, Nunes looking to support. So that will be the thing to keep an eye on, is whether we do go to the wide wingers holding a width, or we look to see something a little bit different with the fullback holding a width on one side. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. I think, look, there's no getting away. This is a game Manchester City have to win. They have to perform well. I think selection-wise, it's a little bit tough to pick some of the players that played in a Leverkusen match because of how poor they were. But let's remember how fantastic the team played Bournemouth to Dortmund to Liverpool. Those are the players I expect mostly to start, and that's a stark contrast to the performances of the players against the Leverkusen. If you think there's anything I've missed out, please let me know down below in the comments so we have that conversation. Please make sure you like the video to help support the channel, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one. And we'll be back with plenty more content very soon.